The moment she couldn't fake the smile anymore was the third week of filming. The sun had barely risen, but the set was already buzzing with noise. Makeup artists ran around with brushes in their hands. Production assistants whispered frantically into headsets, and camera operators stood ready. The movie was supposed to be her comeback, her big one. The script was powerful, the director believed in her, and the studio had spent millions. But Ana de Armas felt like she was falling apart inside, and nobody noticed. Not until that morning she sat quietly in the makeup trailer, staring at her own reflection. Her face looked perfect, not a hair out of place, not a shadow under her eyes. But it wasn't real. Not the glow on her skin, not the strength in her smile. She was exhausted. She hadn't slept in 3 nights. Not since the call from Havana. Not since the news about her father, Keanu Reeves, walked into the trailer right on time. He always did. Never late, never loud. He nodded at her softly, a silent gesture of respect. Then he sat down in the chair next to hers, quietly letting the makeup team do their work. Ana looked at him through the mirror. He didn't say much off camera. Most people thought he was just quiet, but she knew better. There was something about him, calm, a weight, like he carried more than he ever let on. That morning, as they sat there, something in her broke. Her phone buzzed on the counter. She looked down and saw the name she didn't want to see again. Her hand shook as she picked it up. Her mother's voice cracked through the speaker. "He's not getting better, Ana. The doctors say it's a matter of days." Ana didn't answer. She just froze. Keanu watched her. He didn't ask, didn't press. But he noticed. And she knew it. 20 minutes later, she was on set, standing in front of the camera, lights bright against her face. The director yelled action, and she tried. She really did. She opened her mouth to say the lines, but nothing came out. Her lip trembled. The camera crew looked confused. The director gave a gentle prompt, "Ana, we're rolling." Still nothing. Then, without warning, Ana walked off the set. Fast. Head down. Straight toward her trailer. She didn't want them to see her cry. She didn't want them to know how close she was to falling apart. The crew stood frozen. The assistant director turned toward the producer with a helpless look. They couldn't afford delays. Not now. Every minute cost thousands. And their lead actress had just walked off set, but Keanu didn't move. He stood there for a moment, quiet as always. Then, slowly, he took off his costume jacket, handed it to the wardrobe assistant, and walked in the same direction she'd gone. He didn't knock when he reached her trailer. He just waited. Silent inside, Ana sat on the floor, curled up near the corner like a child. Tears streamed down her cheeks. Her father was dying, and she couldn't be there. She felt trapped by work, by fame, by the pressure to smile when all she wanted was to scream. A soft knock echoed. "It's me," Keanu said. She wiped her eyes. "I can't do this," she whispered, loud enough for him to hear. Keanu didn't ask what she meant. He just stayed quiet for a while. Then he said, "You don't have to. Not right now." His voice wasn't dramatic. It wasn't full of answers. But it was kind. And it was honest. Ana opened the door slowly. Her eyes were red, her breath shaky. Stepped in and sat on the floor with her. Didn't touch her. Didn't ask questions. He just sat. That quiet presence again. Like a wall of calm in the middle of her storm. "How do you do it?" she finally asked. "How do you stay so steady all the time?" He looked at her, his eyes soft and a little tired. "I've seen enough storms," he said. "They don't scare me anymore." She didn't reply right away, but his words stayed with her after a while. She leaned back against the wall and closed her eyes. "My dad's dying," she said. "He was the one who told me to act. He believed in me when nobody else did. And now he's thousands of miles away, and I'm here pretending everything's fine." Keanu nodded slowly. "You don't have to pretend here." Those words broke something, or maybe they fixed something. She wasn't sure. The rest of the day passed with the crew trying to reorganize the schedule. People whispered about delays, budget overruns, and studio calls. But nobody blamed her, not out loud, not with Keanu around. The next morning, when Ana showed up on set again, something was different. She walked straight to Keanu and whispered, "Thank you for yesterday." He didn't say anything, just nodded. That was enough. And when the director called action, this time, her voice came out clear, full of pain, yes, but also full of truth, and the camera captured every bit of it. People watching that scene, months later, would call it the most powerful moment in the film. But nobody would know what happened the day before. How she almost walked away. How she almost gave up. A one-man silence helped her find her voice again, and that was only the beginning. The role she couldn't fake, Annie Morethi's son, rose slowly over the studio lot, painting long golden lines across the trailers and tents. Birds moved across the pale morning sky, but Anna didn't notice. She was already on set earlier than everyone. No makeup, no costume. Just sitting on the edge of the stage, hands clasped between her knees, staring at the empty space where yesterday she had crumbled. Keanu arrived 15 minutes later. As always, he didn't say much. He just gave her a quiet nod and sat down on the step beside her. Their shoulders barely touched, but she felt the weight of his presence, calm, grounding like a tree rooted through storms. "I couldn't sleep," Anna said, her voice low. Keanu tilted his head slightly. "Listening without pushing, I kept thinking about my dad. About what he would say if he saw me like that, just walking off the set, crying, failing." Keanu looked at her. "He wouldn't call that failing." Anna gave a small, bitter laugh. "You didn't know him. Maybe not, but I know you." Made her pause. "You barely talk to me. Doesn't mean I haven't been paying attention." Anna turned her face toward the horizon, where the sun was now fully above the line of the trees. Warm light hit her skin. For a moment, she closed her eyes and just let it sink in. By the time the crew began arriving, she was already in costume. The scene scheduled for that morning was a critical one, an emotional breakdown for her character. A moment where everything the woman was holding inside finally came out. And now, strangely, Anna didn't feel like acting it. She didn't need to. The pain was real, and it was already there. "We can push this scene if you're not ready." The director offered gently. Danae. Anna looked toward Keanu, standing across the set, reading over his own lines. "No," she said. "I'm ready." As the camera rolled, Anna stepped into frame with a fire behind her eyes. Every line she spoke felt carved from real memories. Her hands shook, her voice cracked at the edges, but she didn't pull back. She leaned into it. Her fear, all of it poured out. Keanu, playing the quiet and hardened character written for him, watched her in the scene without breaking focus, and then came his cue. Lines were simple, 2 sentences. But the way he said them, soft and heavy, made something shift in the air. Everyone on set fell silent. Even after the director called cut, nobody moved. Then, slowly, a single person clapped. It was the sound engineer. Eyes wide, face pale, and soon the rest of the crew followed. Not in celebration, but in stunned respect. They had just watched something more than acting, something deeper, something that would stay with them. Anna stepped off the set, wiping her eyes. The director rushed toward her. That was perfect," he said, voice trembling. "Honest. Raw. That's the heart of the movie." She smiled, but it wasn't proud. It was quiet, tired, maybe even healing. When she walked past Keanu, she didn't say anything. She just looked at him, and he, as always, simply nodded, as if to say, "You didn't break. You transform." But the peace didn't last long, too. Hours later, just as lunch began, her phone buzzed again. She stepped aside to answer. This time it was worse. Her sister was crying on the other end. "Anna, you have to come. Now." Anna's heart dropped. She pressed the phone harder to her ear. "Is he?" "Not yet," her sister said. "But soon. Maybe tonight." Anna looked around at the crew eating quietly under shade tents, at the camera tracks, the lighting rigs. Everything she was supposed to care about, but at that moment, none of it mattered. She hung up and walked straight to the director. "I need to go." He looked startled. "Go where?" "To Cuba." He hesitated. "Anna, we're in the middle of shooting. We have contracts, schedules." My father is dying, she said. Her voice wasn't angry, just plain, like a door closing. He didn't answer right away, but Keanu did. He stepped forward. I'll cover her scenes. Rearrange. The schedule. We'll shoot B-roll. We'll make it work.
Oh.
The director looked torn. I don't know if the studio will allow it. Then let me talk to them, Keanu said, and his voice, usually calm, had a sharpness to it. Anna stared at him, surprised. He didn't break eye contact with the director. This isn't a negotiation, she goes. Now, the director blinked, then gave a slow nod. An hour later, Keanu stood by the car that would take Anna to the airport. Her bags were packed in minutes. Her passport already in hand, she turned to him before getting in. You didn't have to do that. Yes, I did, he replied. She swallowed hard. You saved the movie. Keanu looked at her gently. Some things are more important than movies. And just like that, she was gone. What neither of them knew was that her flight would take a turn no one expected, at the storm brewing above. The ocean would reroute her path, and that by the time she landed, everything would already be different. The storm, the goodbye, and a promesia stared out the airplane window, watching lightning dance far below the wings. The pilot's voice came over the speaker, calm but clipped. Due to the tropical storm over the Caribbean, we're being rerouted to Cancun for emergency landing. We apologize for the inconvenience. She closed her eyes. Inconvenience? Her father was dying? Every second was a moment she couldn't afford to lose. Tears welled up again, but she didn't let them fall. Not yet. Not here. By the time the plane touched down in Cancun, the sky was a mess of thunder and hard rain. The airport was packed with stranded passengers, all confused and frustrated. Anna didn't speak. She didn't yell. She just stood by the window, calling the hospital again. No answer. When her call finally went through, her sister picked up. Her voice was soft, broken. He's still holding on. He's asking for you. Anna felt her knees weaken. She leaned against a metal pillar for support. Tell him I'm coming, she whispered. Please tell him I'm trying. But deep down, she didn't know if that would still be true in the next few hours. Back in Los Angeles, Keanu sat alone in the quiet of his trailer. He'd just finished a scene without her. Wasn't the same. Something in the air had changed since she left. The director seemed distant. Energy was off. Everyone knew that the heart of the movie was no longer on set. It was fighting to beat inside an airplane. Across stormy skies, Keanu picked up his phone and dialed her number. No signal, of course. He waited. Tried again. Still nothing. He looked down at the floor, then at the wall across from him, where a single photo hung a picture from their first table read. Anna was laughing in it, truly laughing, head thrown back, eyes full of light. That laugh felt far away now. He reached for a pen and paper, had no idea what to write, but his hands moved anyway. Dear Anna, I don't know where you are right now. Maybe in the air, maybe on the ground, maybe with him, maybe not yet. But wherever you are, I hope you feel this the quiet way we're all holding space for you. You said once that you were tired of pretending. I understand that.
Sometimes silence is the only way we survive. So I won't try to say anything.
Clever. I'll just say this. He's proud of you, more than you know. And if you don't get to say goodbye the way you hoped, just know your love still reached him. Love always does. He folded the note and slipped it into his coat pocket. Maybe he would never give it to her. Maybe she didn't need it. But something inside him said, write it anyway. Hours later, Anna sat inside a small terminal in Cancun, surrounded by chaos. Flights delayed, power flickering, and people arguing at the counters. But she didn't move. She had given up trying to control anything. She simply watched the rain fall, until a voice cut through the noise. Anna de Armas. She looked up. A young airline worker stood beside her, holding a printed boarding pass. You've been rebooked on a private jet, heading straight to Havana right now. Anna stood up so fast her knees knocked the seat. What? She asked. The woman nodded. Paid for in full. Under your name. It's waiting on the other runway. Anna's voice trembled. Who? Who did this? The woman shrugged. Don't know. It was arranged anonymously. But Anna knew. Deep down she knew. Without wasting another second, she ran. The private jet was small, but clean. No one else on board. No media, no noise. Just silence and speed. Exactly what she needed, as the plane took off. She clutched her chest. Please wait for me, she whispered silently. Please. By the time she reached the hospital, it was late at night, humid and still. She ran down the quiet halls, past nurses and glowing machines, her heart pounding like a drum. Her sister met her at the door to the room. Tears streaked across her cheeks. He's awake, she said. Barely, but he's waiting. Anna stepped inside. The room was dim. Machines beeped slowly. Her father lay still, eyes half open, breathing shallow. She walked up to him, took his hand gently. Poppy, she whispered. I'm here. His eyes turned toward her. They didn't focus fully, but they saw enough. Mi Estrella, he breathed. My star, Anna broke. Her shoulders shook as tears fell. I thought I wouldn't make it, she said. I tried so hard, he smiled. Small, weak, but true, you did, he said. You're here. They talked for an hour in whispers and silences. Not just about the pain, about memories, about the sea, about childhood, about old songs he used to sing. And then, gently, he squeezed her hand. I'm proud of you, he said, no matter what. And those were his last words. He passed minutes later. Peaceful Anna stayed beside him, head resting on his chest, letting the silence stretch. She didn't cry again, not right away, but in her heart she felt something close. Not an end, not yet, but something whole. The funeral was small. Family, neighbors, old friends, no media, no fans. Just those who loved him when there were no cameras. Anna spoke softly, telling stories no one in Hollywood had ever heard. How her father used to build wooden toys from scraps. How he stayed up nights fixing broken radios just to make her smile. How he once sold his guitar so she could afford acting school, and then she sang an old lullaby he used to hum. Her voice broke, but she didn't stop. She sang through the ache, through the love Keanu never called during those days, never texted. But on the day she flew back to Los Angeles, a small envelope waited for her in her hotel room. No return address. No name, just one letter inside. It was his. The one he had written that night she left. She read it slowly, hands trembling. By the end, she was crying again. But this time, it was different. It wasn't grief. It was gratitude, and maybe something else, something that hadn't fully bloomed yet, something that would soon. When she returned, everything had changed. Air in Los Angeles felt heavier when Anna landed. It wasn't just jet lag. It wasn't even the grief that followed her like a quiet shadow. It was something else, something unspoken. The moment she stepped off the plane, she knew she had changed. But what she didn't know was that the set she left behind had changed too. A black car waited for her at the curb. No name, no words. Just the familiar driver who nodded politely and opened the door. As she sat in the back seat, staring at the passing lights of early morning traffic, her hand slipped into her purse and touched the folded letter again, Keanu's. Letter she hadn't let go of it since she read it. The ink was slightly smudged now, but the message stayed clear. His words had grounded her when the world was falling apart. When she arrived at the studio lot, it was quiet. It's too early for the usual chaos. She thought she'd walk unnoticed to her trailer, but someone was already waiting. It was Keanu. He stood by the entrance, wearing a dark hoodie, cup of coffee in hand. His eyes met hers, calm but searching. You're back, he said softly to Anna. Nodded. I wasn't sure I would be. Keanu didn't move. I'm glad you are. She walked up to him slowly. The silence between them wasn't awkward. It was warm, full. I got your letter, she said. Her voice trembled slightly. Thank you. He nodded. I meant every word. They stood there for a while. Two actors who had been through more than the script ever planned for. Then she finally asked, "How did the studio react? Me leaving in the middle like that?" "They panicked," he said simply. "But they got over it. Especially after the footage of your last scene, they kept it. They called it the soul of the film." Anna smiled softly, but then her face turned serious. "I'm scared, Keanu. I don't know how to act like nothing happened. I'm not the same person I was before." He looked at her with quiet understanding. "Then don't act like nothing happened. Bring who you are now into every scene. That's what the great ones do." As the day went on, word of her return spread quickly. The crew whispered her name with a different kind of respect now. Not because she was famous, not because she was beautiful, but because she had faced something real, and she came back stronger. The director met her with open arms. "Take your time," he said. "We're here when you're ready." But Anna shook her head. "No, I'm ready now." The scene scheduled for that afternoon was heavy, a turning point for her character. A moment of truth and loss. Months ago, Anna would have studied the script for hours, rehearsed every look, every tear. But now, she just stood in front of the mirror, looked into her own eyes, and whispered, "Just tell the truth." When the cameras rolled, she walked onto the set with a different kind of strength.
Oh.
Not the kind that forces smiles or hides pain. The kind that accepts pain and turns it into art. Keanu stood across from her in the scene. His character was supposed to be distant, cold, but his eyes held a tenderness only she could see. The lines they exchanged were simple. Hers, "You don't understand what it's like to lose everything." His, "You're wrong." The moment stretched. Real emotion shimmered just beneath the surface. Neither of them blinked. When the director called cut, nobody said a word. Again, the crew stood frozen, and then, without planning it, without thinking it through, Anna walked over to Keanu and hugged him, tight, longer than a friendly hug, but not romantic either. It was something sacred. Like thank you, like I see you, like we've both been through something and we're still standing. He hugged her back quietly, his hand gently resting between her shoulder blades. And for a moment, nothing else mattered. In the following days, the pace picked up. Filming became more focused, more intense. Every scene between Keanu and Anna carried an energy that the director couldn't explain. "Whatever this is," he whispered to the producer one evening, "it's lightning in a bottle. You have to protect it."
Yes.
But outside of scenes, Anna and Keanu remained quiet around each other, respectful, warm, but distant. One evening, after a long day of filming, they both found themselves at the craft table late at night. The lot was nearly empty. Overhead lights buzzed. Coffee was cold. Keanu poured himself a cup anyway. Anna reached for a banana, then paused. "Do you ever wonder," she asked, "why life gives us these sharp moments? Like loss, silence, heartbreak?" Stirred his coffee slowly. "I think those moments shape the ones that follow. Sometimes it feels like too much." He nodded. "You're still here." She looked at him. He wasn't trying to fix her. He wasn't trying to distract her. He was just reminding her she had made it this far. And maybe that was enough. A week later, the studio released a teaser trailer, a short clip from one of their scenes. Just 40 seconds of raw emotion. The internet exploded. Comments flooded in. "This doesn't feel like acting. I've never seen something this real in a trailer. What happened behind the scenes? This feels personal." Anna read the comments quietly from her trailer. She didn't smile, didn't cry. She just sat still, holding her phone hard. Beating slow and steady, a knock at the door. It was Keanu again, this time. She opened the door before he could say anything. "You've been quiet," she said. "I didn't want to crowd you." "I think," she said carefully, "I want to talk." He stepped in. They sat together, 2 cups of tea, no cameras, no scripts. "You never told me why you wrote that letter," she said softly. Keanu looked down, then back at her. "Because I saw myself in you. Years ago, I lost someone too. And everyone expected me to just keep going. Smile, work, pretend. But no one ever said it's okay to break." Anna felt her throat tighten. You saved me, she said. He shook his head. No. You saved yourself. I just didn't get in. The way their eyes met. Something quiet. Something deep. Neither of them moved. Neither of them had to. Outside, the night deepened. But inside that trailer, two people who had carried the weight of silence found something rare. Not just understanding. Not just healing, but a beginning. They weren't acting anymore as the days passed, but nothing went back to the way it was before. Something had shifted in the air, in their scenes, in the spaces between them. Anna could feel it every time she walked on set. It wasn't just about finishing a movie anymore. It was about living through something, moment by moment, with someone who understood silence better than words. Every look they shared on camera felt real now. Every pause had weight. The chemistry the director once hoped to create was no longer forced. It had grown on its own, slowly and quietly, from pain and patience. The studio noticed. People in the editing room noticed. The raw footage they reviewed wasn't just good, it was breathtaking. And it wasn't just the acting, it was the truth underneath it. Behind the scenes, Anna and Keanu still kept their distance, not in a cold way, but in a respectful one. They didn't speak unless something needed to be said. But when they did talk, their conversations felt like carefully lit candles in a dark room, gentle, warm, full of light. Then came the rooftop scene. It was the climax of the film. The characters had to confront everything: grief, guilt, love, regret. Anna had read the scene months ago and thought, this will be hard. Now she didn't know if she could even get through it. They rehearsed it only once. The director gave them space, told the crew to stand down, let them walk the lines by themselves. Up on the studio rooftop, with the city lights stretching out, behind them, Anna stood barefoot on the cold stone. The night air was sharp, the sky clear. Keanu stood across from her, hands in his coat pockets, his eyes quiet. You ready? He asked Dot. Anna looked up. I think I've been ready since the day. I broke. He didn't smile, but there was something soft in his eyes. They stood there a while longer and walked back down. When they filmed the scene the next day, something strange happened. They forgot the cameras, forgot the crew, forgot everything. Anna spoke her lines. Through real tears, voice trembling, heart wide open. I loved him, she said in the scene. And then I lost him. And I hated the world for not stopping or not caring. Keanu's reply wasn't even in the script. But the director didn't call cut, because whatever was happening was better than what had been written. World didn't stop, he said gently. But I did. The moment you cried, I stopped. And I saw you. Anna looked at him, and for a few seconds there were no actors, no characters. Just them. Keanu stepped closer. Their hands almost touched. You don't have to carry it alone anymore, he said. His voice was low and full of truth, and she broke. On camera, in front of the crew. She fell into his arms, and he held her, not as part of the story, as part of the healing. When the director finally called cut, his voice cracked. The crew stood stunned, and then quiet applause. No shouting, no celebration. Just clapping, soft, grateful. Anna stepped back, wiped her eyes, and laughed through the tears. I wasn't acting, she whispered. Keanu didn't answer. He didn't have to. Later that night, after the wrap on set, Anna sat outside her trailer with a blanket wrapped around her shoulders. The sky above was filled with stars, but her eyes were on the ground. Lost in thought, Keanu walked up with 2 cups of tea. Thought you might be cold, he said. She looked up, surprised. You always know. He sat beside her, handed her. The cup, I've been thinking, she said after a while. Maybe we met at the exact moment we were supposed to. Keanu didn't speak right away. He stared up at the stars. Maybe, he finally said, or maybe we were just quiet enough to hear each other when it mattered. Anna smiled at that. Double quotes. Do you ever think about what comes next? She asked. Keanu looked at her, his expression. Unreadable, you mean? After the movie? She nodded. Yeah, took a sip of tea. I think about a lot of things. Anna turned to him, her voice gentle. "And where do I fit into those things?" The silence that followed was long then. He answered, "Everywhere." Ana's eyes glistened again, not from pain this time, from something deeper. "Something warmer. That scares me," she said. "Me too," he replied. But neither of them moved away. They stayed there, side by side, two people who had survived something silent and deep, and now, slowly, were learning what it meant to let someone in. A few days later, filming wrapped. The last scene was quiet. No grand explosions, no dramatic music. Just their characters sitting on a train, watching the landscape move by. "Do you think we'll ever be okay?" her character asked. Keanu single quotes his character smiled faintly. "We already are." When the director called the final cut, the entire set erupted into applause. The movie was done. But something else was just beginning. Ana and Keanu hugged the crew, took photos, signed scripts, the usual goodbye. But when they found each other again in the middle of the celebration, they didn't say much. He handed her a small box. "Don't open it here," he said. "Wait till you're alone." She raised an eyebrow but nodded. That night, alone in her hotel room, Ana opened the box. Inside was a silver pendant, simple, beautiful, shaped like a small open door, and a note for when you're ready to let someone in. She held the pendant in her palm, its heart aching in a way that wasn't painful, just full. The next morning, she wore it around her neck, not for fashion, but as a promise. The silence that became something more weeks passed. The movie was done. The cameras had stopped rolling. Trailers were empty. The lights were off. Ana returned to her small home, tucked away in the quiet hills, far from noise, far from red carpets, yet something inside her didn't settle. She was supposed to feel relief. Instead, she felt suspended, like part of her had been left behind on that rooftop, and that hug and that silver pendant that now hung around her neck. She touched it often, and every time she did, she thought of him, Keanu. He hadn't called. Not once. But she didn't call either. Maybe they were both waiting. Or maybe they were both afraid. Then the premiere invitation arrived. A white envelope. Gold letters. Clean and cold. World premiere. Formal attire. Red carpet. Press cameras. The moment Ana saw it, her chest tightened. This wasn't a normal premiere. This was the first time she'd be seen again. Really seen after her father's death. After everything. After Keanu went, and she didn't know if she was ready. The night came fast. Her dress was black, simple, no diamonds, just the pendant around her neck. The door still open, she stepped out of the car into the flashes of hundreds of cameras, smiles, microphones. Questions, Ana. How does it feel to star in what critics are calling your most powerful role? Were the emotional scenes inspired by personal loss? Do you and Keanu share a special bond off-screen too? She smiled, gave quiet answers, respectful ones. She kept her words short, her heart guarded. Until she saw him, Keanu stood at the far end of the red carpet. In plain black suit. No one around him. No handlers, no publicist. Just him. And when their eyes met, the noise faded. He walked toward her slowly, deliberately. The cameras clicked, like thunder. But he didn't flinch. He stopped in front of her, and she didn't wait. She stepped forward, reached out and held his hand firm. Warm, the cameras exploded. Questions flew, but neither of them answered. Because in that moment, nothing needed explaining. Inside the theater, they sat next to each other, barely an inch apart. The lights dimmed. The screen lit up, and the movie began. Ana watched herself cry, break, scream, laugh. She watched Keanu hold her in silence. She watched a version of herself she barely remembered, one still holding on to pain like armor, and when the credits rolled, the entire room stood up. A standing ovation, tears filled her eyes. Not from pride, not from fame, but from closure. She turned to Keanu. He looked at her, steady, and she finally spoke the words she had held back for so long. "Thank you for seeing me when I couldn't even see myself." He reached into his coat pocket and pulled out something small, a second pendant. Almost the same as hers, but instead of an open door, it was a key. He held it in his palm, and then he placed it in hers. "Maybe now," he said softly, "we can build something behind the door." Her hand closed around the key, and for the first time in months, she smiled fully. Months passed again. Awards came. Interviews happened. The film was called a masterpiece. People said their connection was rare, honest, electric. But most didn't know the truth. That behind all the cameras, two people had learned how to speak through silence, had carried each other when no one else saw, had healed in ways no script could ever capture. One day Anna walked through her home, barefoot, hair messy, coffee in hand. She reached the small table by the window and found a handwritten note, resting beside a vase of fresh flowers. "Be ready at 7. I'm taking you somewhere the cameras can't find us." She smiled, walked into the kitchen, and tapped. Looked up just as Keanu stepped through the door, the real one, no makeup, no script, no spotlight, just them. Anna stepped forward, barefoot on the tile. Heart open, he reached out. She leaned in, and they held each other. Like a final scene without a final line. Because some endings aren't endings, they're beginnings dressed in soft light, and sometimes the people who say the least end up meaning the most.